everyone. Welcome to this Memorial Day episode of At the Boundary, the podcast from the Global and National Security Institute at the University of South Florida. I'm Jim Cardoso, Senior Director for GNSI and your host for At the Boundary. From our entire team at GNSI, while we hope you're enjoying the last day of this 3-day weekend, please take a moment or two to remember why we celebrate this holiday. To remember and honor all our military personnel who've made the ultimate sacrifice while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. The origins of Memorial Day date back to the American Civil War, with the first National Day of Observance in 1868, when it was originally called Decoration Day, as thousands of Americans across the country decorated the graves of the Civil War soldiers. So while you're enjoying time off with friends and family, and you should treasure that time, take a moment to reflect on those heroes who gave their lives for this sometimes imperfect, but always precious American democracy. With that in mind, I'll truncate our What's Happening in GNSI part of the podcast a bit. I do want to highlight an excellent virtual discussion on our YouTube channel led by GNSI Research Fellow Dr. Arman Mahmoudian as part 2 of our Axis of Resistance Research Initiative. Focus of that discussion is Iran's leading role in the Axis, and he's joined by Alan Ayer, the State Department's first ever Persian-speaking spokesperson, Dr. Sanam Vakil of Chatham House, and Dr. Sina Azadi from George Washington's Elliott School of International Affairs. I'll also draw your attention to our latest GNSI decision brief, written by non-resident fellow Dr. Jonathan Schroden, Chief Research Officer at the Center for Naval Analysis and former Research Director for the Afghanistan War Commission. His analysis is titled Policy Options for Securing U.S. Interests in Afghanistan. You can find it under the Publications tab on our website. Today on the podcast, we're going to provide a unique glimpse into U.S. Central Command here in Tampa, focusing on the CENTCOM coalition. Our guest today is Colonel Allan Peterson from Denmark, the Danish senior national representative to the coalition and its new chairman. The CENTCOM coalition represents 37 partner nations, bringing senior representatives from around the world to Tampa. It formed following the 9/11 attacks specifically to fight terrorism, but now encompasses a wider range of activities to promote peace and stability in the Middle East, Southwest Asia, and beyond. All right, well, Alan, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me. It's an honor. Thank you.
So first, give us a little background on yourself, your military career and kind of what brought you to CENTCOM in Tampa.
Sure. I'm a colonel in the Danish army. I've been in the Danish armed forces for 33 years. Maybe a bit unconventional way of start, as I was a conscript and I was a private for 2 or 3 years before going through the NCO school and eventually the Officers Academy. So once I was through the Officers Academy, it was like a basic army career up until now. With the deployments in our case to Bosnia, Croatia, even Afghanistan twice, and I guess that the 2 latest positions before coming to the States, as I was the ACOS J2 at the Danish Joint Command, and after that I was at NATO headquarters at the Danish representation and also working with the European Union. And those 2 positions sort of formed this job, actually, and it made me just fit right into it. Mm-hmm. So when they needed a replacement for being the Danish senior national representative at CENTCOM, it was kind of natural for me to apply for it. In our army, we have to apply for positions, so I applied for this position, and yeah, like I said, it was a perfect match.
All positions you need to apply for, or just at least special duty type assignments like this?
In principle, all of them.
Really?
And we have that system for 7, 8, no more, 10 years now. And now they are changing it back to sort of the old system where we are appointed positions. We can maybe make 1, 2, 3 wishes. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how it ends out. But, we haven't been informed when it will take effect yet. but it'll be in 1 or 2 years.
Okay. Did you say you were the J2? Are you an intelligence background?
Yeah. Not, originally by, immediately after the Officers Academy, but at some point in my career, it switched into that one, yeah.
Okay. I mean, as we, because you're going to be here for, I'm going to talk about it more, but you're going to be here in Tampa for what, at least a couple more years?
Yeah, our deployment are usually 3 years, and I've been here a year and a half now, so yeah.
Okay.
And we have, in our system, we have the possibility of getting another year if we wish, and if, the guys back home.
And you're doing okay, and they're okay with it.
Yeah,
exactly. Like anything else, you got to be doing the job well, but then again, if your home country wants you back, I guess they can pull you back, right?
And coming to the end of 26, I'll have been out of Denmark for like 6 years, and it's being away from your normal organization, it's kind of tricky as well because nobody knows you by then, and you have to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, it's the same for the U.S. military. I mean, it's good to have these joint combined jobs, somewhat unusual jobs, I guess. But if you get too far away from the home station, then they forget about you for future opportunities. It's interesting here in Intel because I think we do a lot. At GNSI, actually, we've just kind of settled what our strategic areas of focus are going to be at GNSI, and one of them is going to be intelligence studies. So even beyond your role as the senior national rep to Denmark and as the chairman of the coalition, which we'll talk about, maybe you could be involved in some of that as well, in some of our intelligence studies. We got a couple really excellent scholars on the team here that are doing that. Yeah. So
we have actually in Denmark, we have one of our universities, you can up to major in intelligence and cyber. So it's I guess it's a growing sort of thing in the university business or university.
Yeah, USF's grown that as well. We have you can get degrees in Intel, and you can also now we're starting the College of cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and computing. Yeah, those are and so that college actually starts off this fall. So I would imagine as their degree offerings start going out there, we may see some people from the base looking to take some of their even their master's courses and things like that.
Yep.
I can see that. So I talked briefly about the coalition already, but for some people listening, then they may not be familiar with this coalition thing, and so you could talk a little bit more about the partner nation makeup and kind of what the coalition does today.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but the coalition actually started right after 9/11.
9/11, yeah.
As a global coalition to counter, and by then Al Qaeda, and then it sort of developed and spread, I could say, into Iraq and ISIS as well. So when in I guess it was 2014-ish, the real fight against ISIS started. It sort of grew again. So it has been, ups and downs for the coalition. It's been developing in one direction, going back to the original. And, of course, even now it's uncertain which way it will actually develop from now. But we can talk about that later maybe. Mm-hmm. And also, to me, when I got here and we started talking about the coalition, it occurred to me that we have to be careful about how we talk about a coalition and what we actually mean by the coalition. Because behind all this, there's a global coalition against ISIS that's like 85 countries. But that's sort of a political thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas we at CENTCOM, we are more like the military part of that one. So it's in nature, it's smaller because some of the 85 countries have not decided to join the fight in Iraq and Syria. Mm. And some are even, pulling out now due to other priorities. So we have to be careful about which coalition we are talking about. But here at CENTCOM, we are talking about the military coalition and the by now 35 countries at CENTCOM. And then we have some dual-headed national representatives that are also embedded or working with the U.S. SOCOM.
Yes, that's right. SOCOM does have a smaller number, much smaller coalition over there than CENTCOM has as well. Not as well developed either. Like you said, it's been gone now for coming on 24, 25 years since 9/11.
But to me, that sort of signals the strength of it as well, and sort of how it adapts and develops over time. Because some of the main issues, the fight against terrorism, they haven't gone away.
No,
they're
still there.
Here. So yeah.
But you're looking at other things too, right? I mean, I would, it obviously started with the fight against terrorism. That doesn't go away. But it would seem to me it's not as much a singular focus, though. There's probably some other areas that the coalition is working on.
Because when we work in the coalition, it's very easy to get this common ground with regard to the fight against ISIS. Mm-hmm. But when we have an area of responsibility like the one at CENTCOM, you have individual countries seeking bilateral agreements or bilateral cooperation, either with the U.S. or even amongst themselves, on specific topics.
Yeah.
So we both last year and this year we have had this situation about the Red Sea and the Houthis, which was not back when it started. It wasn't a terrorist organization, but then it sort of there was a small coalition within the coalition or a community of interest, whatever you'd like to call it. So it sort of morphs into different directions depending on the actual problem at hand. And who is actually going to participate, who has the political will to participate in a certain operation or whatever it sort of materializes.
Yeah, it really is, if you think about it, there really is something that it's lasted this long. I mean, that countries for years now have sent senior national representatives over here. I mean, you say 30 some odd countries now, but maybe a little smaller than when at its heyday, but still, that's still really something, that there's still that level of support and understanding that this is good for our nation's military strategy overall.
Yeah, I'm sometimes I'm not sure if it's because of the region that it will be constantly a conflict.
Tampa's not a bad place to be. Okay, that's fair enough. That's okay. Yeah. So if we were someplace else, maybe it would be different. But that's okay though. I mean, I think that's something, and one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the podcast is to let the Tampa area know that this exists, that this incredible resource of partner nation officers exists right here. And I think you and I have spoken before. It's something we would like to let more people know about and really, leverage all the possibilities with it.
Yeah, fortunately, we have each week we brief the new joiners at CENTCOM about the same thing. So it's we are trying to promote the coalition as well, because it's a huge source of information, detailed information about the countries from the region, but also coming from a European country myself, if they need anything or need information about this, how we see the world or how we see a specific situation, we are a huge source of information, and all they need is to sort of reach out for us.
Just to ask, yeah.
But sometimes even there's like 300-500 yards between the buildings. It
seems like miles and miles. There's a moat, and there's it's sharks in the moat between you and all that. That's I can when they have you. I know where that building is, and there's I can see how there could be a separation that could kind of just sort of come into being. And it's a shame, but look, I think it's still a success story that has existed for so long. Will continue to
exist.
It is. Now, I mean, you talk about foreign nations, and some of their points of view on things. Current U.S. foreign policy right now can be best described as dynamic. Okay, I mean, it's what's the unique value of the coalition at a time of this significant change with the U.S. and especially some of the U.S. relationships with some of our longtime allies and partners, and there's some changes going on there.
Yeah, it is, as you say, it is challenging for us, mostly because of the uncertainty about the future U.S. policy on, the different countries within the region, or on different sort of topics that come up. But this is something I've experienced during my deployments as well, that we as soldiers, we tend to sort of be at eye level. So we focus on the military parts of it, and the military to military relations. And when we do that, and we are honest with each other about what we know and what we don't know, we can all understand that. So it's to me it's actually quite easy to explain. When people back home, they ask me about what's going on and what direction are you going through in next, or what's going to happen in Iraq. I say, well, I can explain the American process for them. Mm-hmm. So and even with within the coalition and the community, we even we come from different countries and we come from different cultures. On this topic about the military-to-military relations, we all agree.
Yeah.
And we can all understand being sort of, I don't mean it that harsh, but the puppets of our political masters.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that.
Yeah.
And then once that is put aside, we move on.
Yeah.
And we sort of go into the details about what we can actually coordinate and how we can actually cooperate.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm not in the coalition, but I was deployed. I've worked downrange with foreign partner nations when I was in the Air Force, and it was the same way then too. I mean, the individual nations have their individual interest and their individual strategy and their orders, and you have to align with the highest level of orders and intent of the senior leadership. At the same time, there's always ways that okay, now you're on the ground. Okay, there's some type of mission, some type of objective we're seeking to obtain, and how do we do that? And like you said, military folks just tend to get to how do we solve the problem? Doesn't really matter where we're from. How do we solve the problem?
Yeah, I think it's a military mindset of sorts.
Yep, just solving problems. That's what we do. The coalition, it supports primarily issues within CENTCOM. I understand that. But do coalition members participate outside of CENTCOM? Are they doing things external to CENTCOM or working with other national security areas within the United States in the local area or just nationally, or is it pretty much focused solely inside CENTCOM?
It's not focused solely inside CENTCOM. Mm-hmm. And there's no easy answer to your question because every country is different. So some countries, they have a lot of industrial cooperation as well, taking care of their own industrial or own companies that are supplying the American defense industry, perhaps. We have a lot of some of the European countries, the Spanish, for instance, they have a large Spanish community here within Florida. So they have national obligations as well, going as the national representative to, different events and so on. And some of them, like I said before, are dual-headed, so they also sort of cover the U.S. SOCOM. Mm-hmm. And it's basically it's a different story for each country. No,
that makes sense. I mean, there's going to be some shared objectives, but each nation has their national interest. Okay, and there's different things that are important to them, like you said, the different areas. I mean, from a U.S., we use the dime and diplomatic, information, military, economic, and I think that's fairly universal. And different countries have different, I guess, priorities along that dime spectrum.
And even, amongst all the senior representatives, it's different who they actually relate to in their home countries. So for my instance, I relate to the Joint Staff. Some relate to the ministries of defense, and it differs. Some even have to inform the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about something. Yeah. So it's really a mix of everything.
Well, and you said 30. I thought there was 37 countries in the maybe 30. Is that with the dual hatters? There's 37 total nations, or is it 35?
It was 37. 35 now.
Okay, 35 now. So 35 different nations. 35 different senior national representatives. That means there's 35 different national interests at play there. But have you seen in your time there, the year and a half you've been there already, and now as you're coming into this new position, do you see that the coalition maybe tracking towards there's one or two big issues that a large portion of the coalition or all of it is sort of all tracking together in any way?
Yeah, if the countries of the coalition are tracking one single thing, it will be the fight against ISIS. That's sort of the one that's the common denominator.
Well, no, that's kind of that's the generation of the coalition to begin with.
But like I said in the beginning, we also at a point where both the Iraqi government want to sort of decide more in their own country, and we sort of let both Iraq and maybe now Syria as well conduct the fight against ISIS themselves. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's the time to step back a bit and sort of just mentor or let them do the fighting. Mm-hmm. And that means that from a coalition perspective, the next few years will be interesting because we don't know which direction it will go in. But I'm pretty sure the coalition will be here. Mm-hmm. But how they will how it will develop from now on, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that was sort of my next question is how the coalition evolved from a fairly singular focus on counterterrorism, which is still important, but doing some other things as well. If you were we're not going to hold you to this forever, but if you were to look into the future, where do you see the coalition maybe going?
Well, first of all, I don't think that any of the conflicts within the Middle East will be resolved.
Very true. It will always
in the
be
next couple of years
there. Yeah.
So to some extent, and even last year with the Red Sea, we needed sort of a new focus or a refocus on that problem set, just within the headline of freedom of navigation. So. And that has nothing to do with terrorists. It was only later that the Houthis were sort of designated a terrorist group. So I'm pretty sure there will be some kind of problems coming up and some disappearing as well. It'll be hard for me to say, well, there'll be a coalition supporting the situation in and around Israel. There will be a coalition focusing on Iran because that's too much to
there's a lot
to go
with that,
to look
yeah.
into the future, but at least it seems to me that the area consists of both the Middle East and Central Asia. It seems that everything is sort of focusing on the Middle East now, so that would probably be what's going to happen in the future as well, and nobody knows what's going to happen in Syria tomorrow if the president will stay in power or how it will develop. Hopefully, it will be a calming effect, and hopefully they will come about having their own country in a good place. But we really don't know.
Yeah.
So a lot of the countries are just waiting at the moment, waiting to see what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny you keep saying hopefully, and the old military saying hope is not a plan, but at the same time, it is such a dynamic area. I mean, like you talked about the Houthis, 3 years ago, nobody would have really seen that one coming. Syria, very few people saw that coming just almost overnight. Bashar, Assad went from seemingly being invincible to gone. Israel and Gaza and that whole area where that's going to develop into, I think, seeing Lebanese Hezbollah being not dismantled but defanged quite a bit. I don't think really. In the last few years have been, just really in your time, you've been here for 18 months, so in your time here, it's been astoundingly dynamic and how much things have changed. So it's like the U.S., for example, the U.S.'s national strategy seems to be focused more on the Indo-Pacific and China, which is a threat, but the Middle East remains extraordinarily unstable, and who knows what the future holds over the rest of your time here and even beyond that.
Yeah, I think that one of the key elements will be freedom of navigation. To be honest, most of the European countries are, at this moment, they're focusing on supporting Ukraine and rebuilding their own defense forces, and at the same time trying to sort of keep the fires down everywhere that's not needed. And to be honest, also supporting the U.S. in the Indo-Pacific. But the Middle East is right in between. And if we were to sort of move troops to the Indo-Pacific area, we have to go through this area.
Yeah.
Or we could, of course, go south of Africa, but it's a very long journey.
It's a tough journey. That's why the
so and on the being the masters or being at the will of our masters, the political masters. Most of the time, it's economy that's driving all the needs. But this crisis with the Houthis, I think it's showed that the economic system, whether it's more container ships going around Africa, they will adapt. The consumers, they will adapt. They'll pay a little bit more for their goods. So it's not really about the economic situation. It's more about adhering to the international-based world order, and upholding the freedom of navigation.
Yeah, a single nation cannot hold the rest of the world hostage by claiming a level of ownership or or whatever you want to call it over the Red Sea, that area. I mean, that's still, yeah, you're right. I mean, we can adapt and go around the Horn of Africa, but it is a much longer journey. It's going to add some costs. And, I know that from a U.S. perspective, they're looking very hard at it. And there's been some kind of an uptick in activity as well against the Houthis. Where that's going to lead to, nobody really knows at this time. But yeah, it's something that it is part of the natural world order. You're supposed to have freedom of navigation in certain areas, and that is being hindered right now. And eventually, that's going to have to be settled out one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see if they keep shooting or they stop.
Yeah.
Some people say it's only a small pause and they will regroup. But nobody knows at this point.
Well, we have one area of research going right now. It's on the axis of resistance. And so in the axis, it starts with Iran and then it moves out from there. But the Houthis are one of those countries along the axis. So I think it's going to be interesting to see as that research campaign moves forward and what happens over the next few months and how, because Iran had a bad year last year. They had a terrible year last year. But that doesn't mean they've given up on their desires to, not only hold their regime in place, but also expel Western powers out of the Middle East and claim a level of hegemony over it. Does that mean re-empowering the Houthis going forward, so long term they can keep doing that? I guess we'll see. That's what makes your job so interesting, right?
We've used two good words now: hopeful and interesting.
And interesting, yes, yeah, and dynamic. It's very dynamic. Yeah, you pick those words carefully. So you took over as a chair, just a couple months ago, right?
Yeah, by 1st of March.
Excellent. Yeah. All right, well, congratulations for that.
Thank you very much.
How does that work? Do you volunteer? Is there a vote? I actually really don't know how you are elected the chairman or become the chairman of the coalition.
It is an election. It's I'm elected by all the other seniors. Mm-hmm. But having said that, there's always some dynamic in that as well because some are leaving, some have just arrived. So when you narrow it down, it's probably going to be a smaller number of countries that would like to be eligible. Mm-hmm. And then we go through a process of nominating candidates, and finally, in this case, there wasn't an actual vote, but nobody wanted to sort of stand up other than me. So.
Nobody else wanted it, basically? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think it like that, but yeah.
It's a little bit extra work, I guess, for you, obviously.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's interesting as well.
Yeah.
I get to come here and talk to you. I get to go to a lot of interesting places in Tampa. We talked about the interaction with the community. Mm-hmm. That's a huge, to me, it's quite interesting or surprising even how big the interest is for the military here in Tampa. Mm. So you have a lot of small communities that will invite both the international community but also the people on base to different activities and support actually the troops or support the coalition.
Yeah, so it is good to see that.
It's really good.
It is good to see that in Tampa because sometimes when you have a larger metropolitan area like Tampa is, they don't care. It's not as much care. Smaller communities do, because I understand to a certain extent the military base really supports their town, but a larger community not so much. But I do think that there's an appreciation for what MacDill brings, and also the fact there's not just one, but two large combatant command headquarters on MacDill that are doing amazing work. That are overseeing amazing work happening all over the world right here from Tampa. And I think when people understand it, they go, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. And we also have to acknowledge that the coalition has been, like we talked about, for almost 25 years. Mm-hmm. So it's made a huge footprint in Tampa as well.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the years.
Yeah, yeah. So in your time, you've got, maybe a year and a half, couple years doing this. Do you have any key objectives or any things that, like, in your mind that you'd like to, when you leave here, that you'd like to have gotten done?
Well, first of all, I'd like to be known as the one that didn't end the coalition.
But you may not have too much control over that.
No, I know that. So, no.
That's fair enough, though.
No, I've been trying to sort of advocate that this being within a coalition it's working against a common goal, but it is also taking care of your own national priorities and sort of getting along. And to me, this working together is really the essence, because if we don't have like the openness or the willingness to talk to each other, even in this place, then it's not going to work even out, in the real world as well, or anywhere else. So to me, it's really putting a sort of a footprint with regard to cooperation, because we can, at the coalition village, we can go, each or every one of us can go into our offices and we can stay there the entire day and come out in the evening and say, well, it's a good day. But that's not how it should be working.
Yeah.
No, we should be open. We should be sort of having all the offices open so we can consult with each other and talk to each other. So this mindset, I've felt it when I got here as well, almost like everybody's expecting you to know everything from the beginning. And you walk around the aisles, look at the closed doors and say, oh, okay, I wonder what's happening.
What's happening behind those doors?
Yeah, so being, just opening up the doors even.
Yeah. No, I mean, what... It's like, what's the point of the coalition if everybody's just doing their own thing? But there's challenges encompassing with that as well. I can understand that. I came out. Your predecessor, Eric Andreessen, he invited me out to speak about GNSI early days, and we've talked about I'd like to come back out again because now we've developed a bit more. Now we're doing more things that I think the coalition members would be interested in being a part of. So
indeed,
hopefully hopefully I can return the favor as you've come out to visit us. I can come out to visit you, maybe even a couple members of our team to talk to the coalition. As we wrap up the podcast, any final thoughts that you'd like to discuss, or any things that we didn't discuss that you'd like to hit on before we wrap it up?
No, it was just like putting the two things on front of my head is that we as a coalition, we have this common goal that we work towards, but in order to get to that point, it's not just a matter of minding your own business, because we can all focus 100% of our own and trying to get the 100% best solution for ourselves. But that might not be, the best solution for the coalition. Mm-hmm. So going forward, that's one of the main points as well. Sort of making sure that if we are to work together, everybody has to sort of adapt to each other. It isn't just a matter of I know what you're planning to do, and I know what I'm planning to do myself. So we try to not step in front of each other, but it's also making more of it. So it's more like 2 and 2 gets to 5, because we will actually interact and of course meet our own expectations, our own targets as well, but being able to get more of it, more of the same effort that we were going to do anyway.
Yeah. I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast. First of all, I just, wanted to have you over here. We met before, wanted to continue the conversation, but also just to let, people know as well that this thing exists in Tampa, and to highlight it. And hopefully, we can, in GNSI, we can do our part to help you get to where you want to get to go, to provide opportunities to engage, to, work together. It's not the same, but we do the same sort of thing that we do across the university and bringing people together. And sometimes it's easy to go into your offices, into your spaces, but what's the point? You really don't accomplish anything if you do that. And so if you do come together with like-minded but different, people, different dreams and goals and interests, but if you can work together towards, one single common goal, that a lot can happen. It's hard sometimes. It's really hard sometimes, but it's worthwhile in the end. And that's something we're doing as well. So maybe we have more in common than I thought.
Maybe. I hope so.
Yeah. Colonel Allan Peterson, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Many thanks today to Colonel Allan Peterson from Denmark, the Danish senior national representative to the U.S. Central Command Coalition here in Tampa and its new chairman. He gave us an insider's look at the CENTCOM coalition, which plays a vital role at the command and across 37 partner nations. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Next week on At the Boundary, we'll turn the mic over to GNSI non-resident fellow Dr. Andrew Wiskeyman. We'll chat with Milo McBride, research fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. The two of them will reignite our conversation about critical minerals and resources, specifically the geopolitics surrounding energy technologies and how the near future will be shaped by the global competition for these resources. We appreciate you listening today. Be sure to tell your friends and colleagues to subscribe. And if you have an idea for something we ought to cover on the future podcast, we'd love to hear from you. There's a link in the show notes to get in touch with us. Also, be sure to follow GNSI on our socials. There's a lot of great work going on right now at GNSI. Books, decision briefs, and research articles, the Axis of Resistance Research Initiative, and the best way to keep up with everything is to follow us on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. That's going to wrap up this episode of At the Boundary. Each new episode will feature global and national security issues we found to be insightful, intriguing, maybe controversial, but overall just worth talking about. We'll close out today with one final reminder to remember and honor all those Americans who've served the United States Armed Forces and have given their lives for our nation. I'm Jim Cardoso, and we'll see you at the Boundary.